Okay, be honest with me now. Is your kid closing their eyes and covering their ears and just going la 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 every time you try to have a talk with them about puberty or sex? If your 8-year-old is doing that, it can make you just feel like, why? Why don't they just want to listen to what I have to say? Or maybe you start thinking, okay, maybe they're just not mature enough to hear this information yet. Or maybe, and this one's going to sting a little bit, maybe they just don't want to hear this information from you. Now let that marinate for a minute while I tell you about how I almost failed high school math. And I promise you these two things go together, okay? Stick with me. I had a math teacher who could not wrap his brain around the idea that I just didn't get it. Like he would teach the formula and then I would do the example that was just like what he taught. And I would do that one correctly. But then there would be like something, one little thing different with the next question and the formula just wouldn't work and I couldn't figure it out. And so when I would go to him and be like, I don't understand, it's not working anymore, his tone was just so annoyed with me that I didn't get it. You know, you could just tell he was just like, your brain sucks. I mean, he didn't say that, but you get the point. Like it got to the point where I would just start becoming tardy to class and I would skip the class sometimes. I wouldn't do my homework because I just felt so stupid. So of course, I get a report card that shows a almost failing grade in math, and that was not okay with my mother. And so she went and got me a tutor. Now, I cannot tell you the formulas that this tutor taught me. I cannot tell you what the memorization techniques that she helped me in learning these math formulas, but I can tell you how she made me feel. She made me feel smart and competent. Like I had a brain that was made to do math. And that right there is so important here. That's what we as parents need to focus on sometimes when it comes to the sex talks. If our kid is walking away from us or putting earmuffs over their ears every time we try to have a sex talk with them, it's not necessarily the information that is making them want to avoid us. It's probably us. It's our approach and our tone and how our kid feels during that talk that is making them not want to listen to us. I'll be honest with you, I'm putting on my sex ed teacher hat here. All kids are interested in this information. They are eager to learn this information. So if your kid is unreceptive to hearing about it from you, it is not because they don't want to learn it. They totally want to learn this information. They simply do not want to learn it from you. But you can change that. And this is what I do. I help parents learn how to talk to their kids in an age-appropriate way. I help parents have the sex talks. I give the scripts. I give the information. I tell you what to say and when to say it. But the real change that you learn is learning the communication techniques so that when you talk to your kid, they actually want to listen to you. And that's why I love when parents find me and they have a kid that's in the primary age, ages 4, 5, and 6. Because you can mold your kid and the home environment and the delivery of the information in a way that makes it so receptive to your kid that they actually want to listen and hear what you have to say. And this will translate into them being more receptive to the information that you want to share with them as they get older into that intermediate and middle school age. So now if you're already in the situation where your kid is just unreceptive to the sex talks, you need to get a tutor and you're in luck. You don't actually need to pay me to get tutored. I am going to do that right after this ad. Just watch this ad and then stick around because I'm going to give you my best tip for kids that are in the primary age as well as in the intermediate and middle school age. All right, let's go. So if you've got a kid in the primary age, ages 4, 5, and 6, now is the time to start building your skills. Your primary age kid is not judging you. They are totally interested in everything that you have to say. They may not be listening to it all, but they are interested and they find what you say to be valuable already. So parents, my first tip here is knowing what is age-appropriate information in the primary age, because when you know that this information is age-appropriate, that this is something that they will ask at this age, this is very normal and common, you're going to feel more prepared when that question occurs in answering it. So for example, when my 6-year-old asked me, how does the baby get into the uterus? That question didn't surprise me because I know that it's totally normal and common for 6-year-olds to be interested in where babies come from. But of course, by the time my kid was 6, I had explained this many times before. I had totally done check-ins to gauge how much information she had been retaining from our little conversations over the years. And I knew that she was aware that a sperm and an egg cell need to come together in order for a baby to be made. So it wasn't the question that surprised me. It was how she was approaching me for the next layer of information. So here's what I mean. She wasn't asking about the sperm and the egg anymore. She was critically thinking. She was saying to me, so if the sperm is in the male's body and the egg cell is in the female's body, how does the sperm and the egg meet? So she just asked the question, just like that. She was curious and she knew up until this point, right? Every time she had a question, she would ask me and she would get an answer. So this question was no different. It was, I have a question, I'm going to go to mom about it. So it's not just sex questions, it's really any questions that our young kids are asking. Curiosity has to be encouraged at this age so that they feel good when they ask us a question and we encourage their questions and therefore they're more receptive to hearing the answer. So now let's back it up. If I had told her, you know what, you don't really need to worry about where babies come from, you're just a kid, she probably would have felt like how I felt in my math class. Asking a question and getting a non-answer. She might have become unmotivated to learn and her curiosity would not be associated with me. She would be looking for someone else to ask her questions to. And this is why we have to encourage curiosity at home and creating a home environment where kids feel safe and supportive in asking all of their questions, not just sex questions, all of their questions. So if you're looking for guidance on how to create this type of home environment, but more importantly, you want to know what is age-appropriate information for kids in the primary age, ages 4, 5, and 6, I've created the Early Talks Guide. It's the blueprint to get you feeling more comfortable having the talks during these early years. And you're not going to be saying the word sex. There's lots and lots of talks that you could be having during these early years that encourages curiosity and builds a safe and supportive home environment. Because if you start to feel less stressed and less anxious when your 5-year-old asks you sex questions like where do babies come from, it's going to stay with you and you are going to feel less stressed and less anxious when the what sex or what 69 questions start coming in the intermediate and middle school age. If you're ready to start developing these parenting habits to make the sex talks easier now, you can find the digital download on my website or in the description, there's the link. But let's say you don't have the luxury of time anymore. You've got an 8-year-old and they are completely uncomfortable asking you questions. And when you try to approach them to have a sex talk, it's met with earmuffs or they walk away. And you're probably wondering, like, why? Why don't they want to talk to me, right? You know, I've never dismissed any of their questions. I've always told them they can come and ask me anything. I feel like I've been really great at being open and honest with the questions that they have asked. Why? Why don't they want to talk to me? And I say this really sincerely, just let it go. Don't try and jog your memory and try and figure out when it was that moment that they went from being comfortable asking you their sex questions to not preferring to. Don't do that. Don't stress yourself out with that because it doesn't matter. You're not going to be able to go back in time and change that moment. You're going to have to work harder now. Your kid has already decided that this is an awkward topic. So even if you think it's not awkward, it doesn't matter. They think it's an awkward topic and they don't want to talk to you about it. So what do you do? Now, before I give you my recommendation on what to do, I'm going to tell you about a topic that I do not like talking about. I do not like talking about money and personal finances. So if my husband was to tell me, hey, Kathleen, we need to have a talk about our family budget, I would probably do the same thing as your 8-year-old. I would probably close my ears and go, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to talk about it. Let's change the subject. But the difference between me and an 8-year-old is that I have a fully formed brain. And I know that it is important to be aware of the amount of money that I'm bringing in versus spending, even if I don't want to. So what does my husband do every time that we need to have a talk about taxes or retirement? He does the one thing he knows that I absolutely love. It's an at-home happy hour. It is the best. There is a bottle of wine and then there's tons of little finger foods, okay? There's little olives and cheeses and crackers and pretzels and hummus and little dippy things. And there's all these little things to pick at and you have a nice glass of wine. I absolutely love at-home happy hour. And he knows this, and he absolutely uses it to his advantage. I will sit through a god-awful conversation about our taxes because there's some things that I absolutely love to pick at and eat and drink a glass of wine. So why am I telling you this? I am telling you this to help you figure out how to have a talk with your kid where they are most likely to be receptive to listening to what you have to say. And it doesn't have to be food related. I mean, it could be, but it doesn't have to be. Okay? What is it that you can offer your kid that they absolutely cannot refuse and be willing to have a talk with you? Now, anytime I come home and I see that my husband has prepared an at-home happy hour, I sit down and I look at all the delicious little nibbles and I pour myself a little glass of wine and I start eating. But I know what's coming. I know there is going to be a talk about finance. I don't know if I should say this next part because sometimes my husband does watch some of my videos, but it's really not that bad. Like the finance portion of the talk is not the whole conversation, right? It's only like a part of it. And that's really important because it's just a short part and it's something important and I do need to know it, but it doesn't last the whole happy hour. So if you've got an unreceptive kid, don't let that deter you. It is going to take a little bit more effort on your part than if your kid is in the primary age. Show them that it's important to you that they have accurate information and offer them an activity or a donut or a snack or something that you know that they absolutely love. And then have a really quick sex talk. Do this a few times, and generally, they will become more receptive to listening to what you have to say. I mean, they're probably not going to engage at all with what you have to say, especially in the first couple of times, but they're definitely going to be more willing to listen. I tell you this because I know it works. I have parents who have used this method in re-engaging in the sex talks with their preteens. So it does work. If you go and try this out with your intermediate or middle school age kid and it's kind of working and you're seeing some success, but something seems to be missing, then reach out to me by filling out the form on the Top Talks parenting course. It is linked in the description and I will get back to you via email in order to discuss where you are struggling and if this course might be what you need in order to really get over that next hump and have successful sex talks. I'm Kathleen and I make videos for parents on how to have the modern day sex talks. If you are struggling having the sex talks, getting them started or continuing them, reach out to me. I am here to help you.